Moondog Labs Anamorphic lens was one of the first to bring this style of cinematography to your smartphone back in 2014. While many top-of-the-range smartphones now ship with multiple lens options such as telephoto and ultra-wide angle, none as yet come with an anamorphic option. Therefore, if you want to add the classic widescreen cinema look to your video, you'll need to add a conversion lens. In this video, I'm going to look at a few of the most popular anamorphic conversion lenses on the market. Where Moondog Labs led the way, others have followed. But is the Moondog Labs still the anamorphic to beat? I'll be looking at the Moondog Labs, the Moment, and the popular cheap alternative from Ulanzi. Now, this is actually the first edition, but I also have the recent third edition Ulanzi Anamorphic to look at too. Let's see if it's any better than the first. I'll be using my Samsung S9 to test them all. I won't be adding any extras like ND filters because I want to show you how each lens performs without a filter altering the look. Each lens mounts onto your device slightly differently. For the Moment Anamorphic, I'll be using their custom-made case designed for the S9. So that should be a nice snug fit. Using a case like this means there's no need for adjustment as the mounting position is fixed. For the other lenses, I'll be mounting with a clip of some kind, which means they need to be adjusted to sit perfectly over the smartphone lens. But the advantage of the clip is that you can use it on many different devices. I have two Moondog Labs Anamorphics, one with a 37mm thread and one with a 17mm thread, but I'll be using the 37mm version with a simple clip. I could also mount the lens using my Zekti grip, but for this I'll just use the clip. The Ulanzi lenses have two types of clip that come with them. One is a simple spring like a clothes peg, the other screws into place and is therefore more solid. I'll be using the screw version though. The Ulanzi uses a 17mm thread, so you could use it with any mount or cage which carries a 17mm thread. Another nice thing about the third generation Ulanzi is that it comes with a 52mm filter mount, so this makes adding an ND filter a little bit simpler. The Moment case involves extra cost. When I bought the S9 case, it was down to about $20 or so not a huge extra expense. However, each time you get a new phone, you'll probably need to buy a new case. On the plus side, setting up the Moment Anamorphic with the case is so much easier than the other methods. With the clip, each time you use the lens, you need to fiddle around to make sure the lens is nicely positioned. This way you avoid as much distortion as possible at the edges of the images. But with the Moment Anamorphic and case, once the case is clipped on, you mount the lens with a simple twist, and there's no positioning of the lens needed after that. At least with my S9, that was my experience anyway. The Moment lens also has a screw with a little key to loosen it. This is used if you want to rotate the position of the lens by 90 degrees. There's also some spare screws if you lose the ones in the lens. The only reason to have this is for phones which have a horizontal lens, such as the iPhone X and the Galaxy S9 Plus. We went up to the mountains here in Switzerland to film some sunsets. Each lens has a certain character to it, although there was not much difference between the two Ulanzi Anamorphics. The Moondog Labs Anamorphic is the most subtle when it comes to lens flares. I liked the Moment too. I found it easier to get nice shots with subtle, tasteful lens flares with these lenses. Both Ulanzi Anamorphics have these very strong blue lines, which can really dominate the footage if you're not careful. For that reason, I found myself having to work a bit harder to get it to look nice. I shot many more takes with the Ulanzis than with the Moment or Moondog Labs because I was trying to get the flare not too overbearing. Personally, I find the lens flares are nicer looking when they complement the image rather than distracting us from the video. For example, it looks really nice if the lens flare appears and disappears during the shot. It's like a burst of light which fades. In previous videos, I've talked about shots having a beginning, middle and end, so your anamorphic lens flare can become part of that. As the camera moves, you can allow the light to hit the lens and the flare to explode for a moment. This, to me, is more subtle and tasteful than simply aiming the lens at the light and having the flare dominate the entire shot. Of the four lenses, the Moondog Labs Anamorphic had the most natural look. The lens didn't alter the tone of the image too much. The Moment lens seemed to add a slight blue cast, making the image a little cooler. Meanwhile, both Ulanzi lenses changed the tone of the image the most, adding a red hue. So the shots from the Ulanzi lenses came out warmer looking. Now, preferably, we don't want the lens changing the tone of the image, because if we have to correct for what the lens is doing later on, that's extra work for us. Plus, the 8-bit video produced by our phones is a delivery format, so it doesn't really allow us to change the color too much before it goes a bit muddy. Either that or the blacks get so crushed and it doesn't look as good. The added tone is only a slight change. I noticed it most in the Ulanzi lenses. That doesn't mean you can't use these lenses, but it's something to be aware of when using them. Now, because of the exaggerated flare, the Ulanzi lenses took a bit more practice to get right. On the plus side, you need less light to get a flare with the Ulanzi lenses. I noticed the newest Ulanzi, the 3rd edition of the Anamorphic, produced the most exaggerated flares. I also found some distortion in the left side of the image. Plus, the red hue was most pronounced in this latest version of the Ulanzi Anamorphic. So, because the lens flares are generated by a coating on the glass of the lenses, we can assume the thicker coating in the 3rd generation is creating bigger flares but also adding extra redness. For that reason, I think I actually prefer the look of the original Ulanzi anamorphic lens. So all in all, each lens has its pluses and its minuses. I think we can say, the Moondog Labs is probably the most expensive of the four, but it does have the most neutral look, a nice subtle lens flare. The Moment one is definitely the easiest to mount, and for that reason it's almost like the first one in my mind if I'm thinking of using one, because it's so easy to set up. You almost reach for that one first, And the Ulanzis, they're both pretty affordable, and you also get a few extras, 2 clips, and the 3rd generation comes with that 52mm filter mount, so there's some good sides to the Ulanzi as well. Also, the good thing about the Ulanzis is that you need to work less to get those lens flares appearing. On the other hand, you need to work more if you don't want that sort of over-the-top lens flare. So it's all really what you want, what you like the look of. I think I would probably stick with my Moondog Labs for most situations. Maybe the Moment I would pick up if I want that convenience. I just wanted to get shooting quicker. With the Ulanzis, I might choose them if I'm struggling with a certain angle to get a lens flare, and I think I want some serious lens flare. I think that's the biggest advantage of the Ulanzis, especially the 3rd generation. Then again, the quality of the 3rd generation wasn't quite as good, with that little bit of blurring at the left-hand side. If I had to choose between the two, I think I'd go for the first Ulanzi, the 1st generation. So that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please like and subscribe and hit that notification bell, and I'll see you in the next video.